Our life is and what we're able to do and how we're able to serve and give is so fundamentally different because of so many of those no's, even though at the time they hurt, they're painful. And it's like, I really think those, like so often the most painful times in our life and the rejections and the no's are often like just like serendipitous grace, like wrapped in a package labeled painful, rejection. And so, part of staying positive was really keeping the perspective the whole time.
How did you get over that? And how do you help women to go, no, like, don't do that to yourself. Like, you do have something, especially in the face of so much rejection, and you kept going. It seems superhuman.
The thing that I love is that you're talking about this, right? Imposter syndrome and all of that. And I talk about a lot of, stories pertaining to that in the book as well. The very first thing that is so important for everybody listening right now is like, literally everybody has it. I've never met a person who doesn't have it. Everybody has it, right? And so it's like, okay, that's the first thing. Because once we know that, we're like, this person I watch on television every day has it. Like everybody has it. And that, right, just wrapping our heads around that is really empowering, because it's like, okay, I'm not alone in this. It's normal. I feel unqualified. I feel all those things, right? Everybody has it. The second thing is, I do a lot of things when I start to feel it. Like I've built this, I talk about a little bit about this in the book, where I built kind of this own imaginary toolbox that I pull from when I catch myself going there. You know what I mean? And there's things I tell myself. One of them is, I'm trying to remember this part isn't in the book, but I'm just going to share it. I feel like it was Steve Jobs. I don't remember who said this, but one person shared this quote that was so powerful, and it's always stuck with me. They basically said, every single thing that's ever been built or created or done in the world was created by someone just like you and me. And when you think about it, it's true. Mm-hmm. It's all true. And I think about that. I write so many things. For me, when you see my circle of friends, they're all different faiths. Some of them have no faith. But their hearts are huge, right? So I love having powerful people around me that remind me of who I am and help talk me out of my BS when I start, like, I don't know if I can do. But for me also, I keep a lot of empowering statements around me that I pull from. And, one of them that's huge for me, because faith is a big deal to me, although I think this applies to anybody, no matter what their faith. But, there's a famous saying that really fills my soul when I start to feel imposter syndrome or doubt myself or feel like I don't have what it takes or like I'm not qualified, right? How many times do we feel like we're not qualified? And these famous words say, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And for me, I feel like when we have a knowing in our gut, right? And we can't shake it, right? I feel like that's part of your calling or your purpose in life. And I think we can have multiple of those. But when you have it, for me, I kept feeling this calling, like I was supposed to create this dream, launch this dream, and I was supposed to do whatever I can to shift culture in the beauty industry. I just kept feeling it. And during all these years of no's, because when we finally created this product, and by the way, I just thought, as an entrepreneur, like so many people will relate to this. You're like, okay, this product is amazing. Finally, yes, it's just going to do well, right? Oh my gosh. The first 3 years, I couldn't even afford to pay myself, right? And every retailer we sent the product to either said no or never replied. Every meeting I got in person when I thought I was going to crush it and kill it. I remember this first big Sephora meeting I had, and I literally left the building, going down the elevator, walking as fast as I could to get out the door. This is in downtown San Francisco. And I could barely afford the plane ticket to get there. And it was a big no. And I was so devastated. I was trying, because the elevator ride down from this big no was filled with people that I'm guessing worked at Sephora. And I'm like, I'm a CEO. I cannot cry. I cannot cry. I've got to hold my shit together. I've got to make it. And I remember getting out of the elevator, rushing out the side of the building on Market Street and like pushing myself against this brick wall next to a fast food restaurant and just sobbing as hard as I could. It was no after no. QVC, I remember years of no. And I finally got the head guy, Alan Burke, who is responsible for building this billion-dollar empire on QVC. And he got all these luxury brands from department stores to want to sell on QVC, and they still do. And he's just a genius. And I remember finally getting him on the phone. And I remember pacing in the office, like so nervous because I needed a yes. And well, I should say pacing in our office, AKA the living room, because right. And he got on the phone and he's like, we've reviewed your products with all of our buyers. It's unanimous. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And I was so devastated because with my mission of wanting to shift culture around beauty, I just knew, oh my gosh, if I can get on QVC, it's not like a Photoshop magazine. It is live. It is live television to 100 million homes. And I could prove how my product works live. And I could show models of that represent every different type of and size and age and skin color and skin tone. And I just knew in my gut, right? I knew in my gut when we check in with our purpose, with our calling, with our mission, I knew that I was supposed to be on QVC. And to finally get this big call from the head of all of it, Alan Burke, telling me I'm not the right fit and we're not the right fit for QVC or their customers. It's devastating when people tell you you're not the right fit. And when people that you are so tempted to put on a pedestal because they're experts and they've created incredible things and they're known as visionaries. When touted visionaries are telling you one thing and your gut is telling you another, it's hard to keep going. It's also hard to feel like, well, wait, what if my gut is wrong? And what if I'm not enough? And what if I'm, like he said, not the right fit? And what if I'm not qualified? And here's the thing is, fast forward, a long time later, when we finally got one shot on QVC, we finally got a yes from a buyer, not from Alan Burke. We finally got a yes, and we got one shot, which came down to 10 minutes. And we would I knew, and here's the thing, Kathy, is at the time, and this was a little over 3 years into our business. So at the time, we were still selling like 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, barely keeping the lights on. And QVC needed us to manufacture, pay for, and ship in over 6,000 units of our Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer in order to sell in a 10-minute window to hit their sales target or not come back. And the biggest thing that was on the line was that in beauty, it was a consignment deal, which meant we had to pay for all of it, make it, ship it in, and we only got paid for what sold. So and as an entrepreneur, you know this, everyone listening knows this, like never take a purchase order you can't afford to lose. But in this case, we had nothing. This was our last chance at like not going out of business. And it was a big yes. And we decided to kind of risk it all. We applied for SBA loans to cover the cost of making the 6,000 units. 22 banks said no. It was bank number 23. They gave us enough money just to cover the purchase order in an SBA loan. So we had one shot on QVC and we had to sell, right? We had to hit their sales target, dollars per minute and not come back. When we got the one shot, I flew out there. I was there a week before. I went out a week before this airing and I sat in a rental car in the parking lot right out front every day. And I just sat there because it felt so heavy and so big. And I remembered, you talk about Oprah, actually. By the way, Oprah was the very first person to read the book cover to cover because I wanted her blessing on the parts I included about her. Otherwise, I would have never included. Of course,
you had that
stories.
epic piece of this whole puzzle. Oh my God.
It's a crazy story. And I got her blessing at the very end of the book. I shared, okay, when you talk about I've never, not to be off track, but I've never shared all the real story behind the story of everything. So this book is the first time, including all the personal stuff. But anyhow, I sat in that parking lot staring at the front door of QVC. And I remembered this Oprah episode where she talked about the color purple and how she was so obsessed with it that it felt like it was too much for her to carry anymore, because she wanted it so bad. And someone had told her, oh, real actresses are up for the part. And right. And so she told the story of just going to a retreat where she was running the track in circles and singing I Surrender All and asking God to take it from her. And then Steven Spielberg called. And anyways, so I remembered this episode. Anyone who's seen that episode will remember, but I literally channeled that. I'm sitting in this car in the parking lot. I start singing I Surrender All because it felt too heavy for me to carry. It felt like the next time I walk through these doors at QVC, I'm either going to walk back out of business, or with my whole life changed. It was one or the other, because we had one shot. And if you do not hit the sales goal, you don't come back. And the hardest thing, and I talk a lot about learning how to tune in and trust our own gut and trust ourselves, even when everyone else is saying something different. And this was probably the biggest lesson I've ever learned in my career and life, was in this moment as it pertains to trusting my gut, because we had one shot. And what we did is we hired these third-party consultants, and they helped so many people sell their products so well on television and other channels as well. And when we met with them, they all said the same thing to me, which is, okay, if you want a chance at doing well, here's what you need to do. You need to use these type of models, which were just like the ones I had seen in magazines for years. And, you need to produce yourself this way. And I would say to them, okay, but but what if I'm sitting at home and I have rosacea? Exactly. And what if I'm, 75 years old and I have hyperpigmentation? How is anyone going to know this product works for them if they don't see someone using it who looks like them? And, we would fight about it. And these experts wanted the best for me. They wanted me to win, but they were just telling me what they knew. Right. And this is so important, is so many times experts, visionaries, etc., you can never take it personally when they don't believe in your dream or think you have what it takes, because no matter how visionary they are, typically they still only will believe something will be successful if they've already seen it successful before. So if you're doing something new or novel or different, or you're going to put your own take on it, they're not going to realize they're doing this, but they're likely not going to think it's going to work, because subconsciously they've never seen it work before. And so I'm sitting there knowing I have one shot on TV, and knowing the experts are telling me use these type of models. And yet my gut instinct, my why, my authenticity, right? My authentic reason for launching this business is to not use that type of, to use every type of model, right? And it's really hard in these decisions in life when your experts are telling you one thing, your gut's telling you another. And we had one shot. And I just remember this moment sitting in that car, singing I Surrender All, crying. And I just remember thinking of, who is this woman that's going to be watching me? If I have the blessing of her spending her precious time turning her television on and seeing me, I'm not going to waste it. I'm not even going to focus on, let me sell as much as I can. What do I want to stand for? And I just remember having this moment hit me where I imagine so many different types of women. And one of them that always stands out in my head when I think back to this memory is I imagine a single mom folding laundry in Nebraska who literally doesn't even have time to remember that she matters and that she's beautiful. And I would rather have her look up on her TV and even not buy anything and see me showing women that look like her and stand for that than sell a shitload of product and stand for nothing. And I knew what I had to do, but sometimes when we know what we have to do, it doesn't mean it's easy. And when so the live show happened, and the countdown clock at 10 minutes started, and it was 9:59, 9:58, 9:50, and I'm like, oh shit. But you can't try to sell and you can't look freaked out, or nothing will sell either. And I just remember literally pouring everything I had on the air. And I remember the moment my bare face came up on national television, my bright red cheeks. And I remember going to all the different models that looked like, real people. And I'll never forget, it was I was shaking like a leaf. Oh my gosh. And then the whole cell, because everything was on the line. And then I remember right toward the end, the host was the deep shade is down to 200. The tan shade is almost, and I was like, what? Oh shit. Oh. And then I remember all of a sudden at the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up. And I literally, like, tears like streamed down my face. I remember my husband like rushed through the double doors of the studio, and I looked at him, and they cut the live show, and boom, they're on to the next cell of the next product. I looked at him and I'm like sobbing, and I'm like, real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And it was like this whole like thing. And that one show turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year, 151 the next year. And then we've done 250 live shows a year on QVC for 8 years in a row, and built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. It is right now at this moment, to this day. And the only reason I share that is for every person listening. It was 3 years of no from QVC. It was Alan Burke saying, you are not the right fit for our customers or for QVC. And we finally did get a shot. And so 2 things about that. And by the way, oh my gosh. So by the way, okay, I love, for everyone listening, like literally no one can tell you are not the right fit, right? Like nobody can tell you that. And I feel in life, our own calling is always stronger than any opposition. Sometimes it feels like our opposition is huge, but your opposition cannot compete with your calling. And what it comes down to is which one you decide to listen to, right?
So good.
And like, so this part, so fast forward, we're on QVC now, doing really, really well. And Alan Burke ends up, I get to know him. He's freaking a genius. He became our biggest champion, our biggest cheerleader. He's to this day right now one of my closest mentors in my life. So awesome. And then he retired from QVC after like a million years there. I don't know how many decades, but he retired. And we ended up hiring him on our advisory board in a paid position. And it was this moment where I realized, Kathy, like, oh, the guy who rejected me is now working for me, right? And it was like, oh my gosh, like nobody can tell you how big your dream can be. No one can tell you you're not the right fit. And here's the last thing I'll say about this. I didn't take it personally when he said no, right? Mm-hmm. I've gotten a lot of rejections. I talk about the investor who told me they wouldn't invest in someone because they wouldn't invest in our company because they didn't think women would buy makeup from someone who looked like me with my body and weight. Like I've had every type of rejection, and it's so easy for us because we're human to take these personally, right? And it wasn't that I wasn't hurt. It wasn't any of that. But professionally, I always made sure to not take it personally. I always made sure to treat it always as like, oh, this will be a yes one day. And then I'll decide if I want to partner with them, but it will be a yes. And I always had that attitude. And so with Alan, even after that tough no happened, Alan Burke at QVC, I still nurtured that relationship, and I still said it's going to be a yes one day and all those things. And here's what I'll say, you guys, is, I believe, and you, for everyone, it's different. For some people, it's God. For some people, it's a universe. For some people, it's love. I believe in perfect timing, even when it doesn't feel so perfect to us. And what I'll say about that is like, what I learned many years later is had Alan Burke said yes when I wanted him to, we would have failed miserably because I didn't know what I didn't know. And we were not operationally sophisticated enough to handle the back end of the business of an account the size of QVC. Wow. I just didn't know it. And sometimes our hardest no's our hardest no's in life are actually like serendipitous grace. Yeah, like totally wrapped in this package labeled painful rejection. Yep. And anyways, it was a big thing. God. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I'm like live off the cuff with you, and I love it so much. But you asked something, and I just realized I forgot to answer it. Yeah. No, but you asked for people that think their idea has already been done, or they asked for, right? One thing I want to share about that. I'm getting hyper right now because this is like, oh my gosh, so I talk about this lesson so much in the book because I wish I had learned this earlier. I wish I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep. If so many people talk themselves out of their dream, they talk themselves out of their truth because exactly what you said, they're like, oh, that person's doing so well with this idea already on social media. And this person did really well. And this person, oh no, here's the deal. Nobody, I don't even care how many, there was millions of makeup brands out there when we launched a makeup company. Please don't ever think that because your idea has already been done, that it impacts your ability to do it and succeed. It just doesn't. And when you look at all of the researchers that research authenticity and all of that, they talk about how it's impossible to have an authentic connection with another human being, a real connection, unless you show up authentically, right? If you show up as your representative or who you think the person wants you to be or whatever, you'll never have an authentic connection, which also can mean with your customers, because your customers are relationship too, right? And with that said, as long as you show up fully, authentically who you are, it doesn't matter your idea's already been done. No one can do it the way you're going to do it. Like nobody can share it, express it, communicate it, create it the way you're going to do it. And so it's literally, as long as you're authentic and that through line of authenticity is in you, it's impossible for anyone else to have done your idea because they can't do it like you. It's impossible. And I just think that is so important. And I'll also say that because I've done now over 1,000 live shows on QVC myself. And the one thing that happens is you're there all hours of the day and night because you might have a show at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. The fun part of it, and it's hard, the hours were very hard. I did it for 8 years. I spent almost every holiday in the QVC green room and all those things, which it was the biggest blessing. It allowed people to become aware of It Cosmetics, and we couldn't afford advertising at the time or anything. So it was the biggest gift. But one of the things that I love most about it was that in the green room, even when you're stressed out in the green room at QVC, you get to meet so many other founders of companies, right? And you all end up bonding and all the things, the good, the bad. So not everyone's nice, but you meet a lot of people. And the through line talking about authenticity is when I look back at doing over 1,000 shows on QVC, one commonality between the people who make it and the people who don't, because most people go to QVC and they're on air one time, a couple times, and they're gone, right? Mm-hmm. And when I go, why is it some people make it and some people don't? It's never their personality type. It's actually, I wish I could say it was, but it's never even if they're nice. It's like the one thing that I saw is the people who are the same on air, the people who are the same on air as they are off air, they're the people who last, right? Sometimes they're quirky and they're this and they're that and they're wild and you're like, they're crazy. And then they're that same way on air selling their product. They last because you can't fake authenticity. And viewers are smart, customers are smart, and they sense it and they can't connect with you unless you're the same. Your heart is open and you're the freaking same. And the people that are even really great, awesome people, like good hearts in the green room, then they go on air and they're all of a sudden the professional representative that they think they're supposed to be, or they're really cool and funky because they think they're supposed to be, but that's not really who they are. They never last. And I feel like when people get this, it's freedom in so many ways, because it's so easy, especially in a social media world, to get distracted and compare ourselves and go, oh, this is working for so-and-so. Maybe I should do more of that. It's like, oh no, that's when you start to chip away at your own secret sauce and your own potential.
So how did you and Paulo believe it, even when you maybe shouldn't have believed it? How did you keep each other positive on this journey of rejection and a ton of no's?
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to do. And I think that when I look back, like there was a lot of mistakes I made, a lot of times where I put experts' opinion on a pedestal instead of my own faith and my own inner knowing, right? Which is so tempting to do. And so, one story I think that really captures, because I think so many of us connect through the power of story, right? And captures like some of the things we did that helped us believe, helped us stay positive, helped us keep going. And they came out of some of the toughest moments. So we were a couple years into the business. It was so hard. We were down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was not just our company bank account, it was our personal bank account. So anyone out there, whoever has been in that spot and you go to an ATM to get cash and you hit no receipt because you don't want to see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what can't, like, that's where we were at. And dollar hot dogs from Costco on the counter outside. Anybody who goes and eats it. The good thing is those taste good, but it was like, how do we conserve every penny we have? It was like a season like that. And we finally got a big call from an investor at a private equity firm. And John, I was so excited because this particular private equity company, they've invested in tons of like consumer product companies, like products all of us right now buy at the grocery stores. A lot of them, they've taken this particular PE place has invested in some of them pre-revenue, some of them when they're really small, and built them to these huge household names. So I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, they see how how good our product is, what we're doing. Like, if they invest in us, like, A, maybe we're not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they'll have leverage and help get us in all these stores that are telling us no, and get us on QVC is telling us no. So I was so excited, and we started taking meetings, and they seemed super interested. We got to the final meeting after the diligence phase, which is when you show them your projections and your plans and all that. I'll never forget this moment. And it was a defining moment that helped me understand, how do you stay positive in the face of adversity and opposition and hard times and setbacks. We got to the final meeting, okay? And I was like, it's going to happen. Paulo and I flew in for the meeting, and they were so kind. Everyone was great. And then the head guy, and he was standing about 3 feet from me, and he says to me, so, we just want to tell you, we appreciate you. We're rooting for you, all these things, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And by this point, I'm so used to hearing no, right? And I'm like, okay, can you tell me why? Like, could you give me any input or feed? Because usually feedback's a gift, right? And he goes, well, do you want me to be honest with you? Like, really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he was literally 3 feet from me. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you, with your body and your weight. And I remember watching, it was almost like I was watching his mouth move in slow motion. And when these words were coming out, I felt like this lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt, like flood my body all at once. And I remember as I was watching him say these words, I wasn't offended or anything like that. I mean, it wasn't even about him. It was almost like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye. And I remember this moment where two things happened. Like, I remember feeling like, okay, I need to keep my faith bigger than my fears right now. But I also had this deep feeling as he was talking where I just felt he's wrong. He's wrong. But I also felt like if I was ever going to prove that, it would come down to me truly learning how to believe it for myself. And the other thing that happened, and I truly believe our setbacks, even when they suck, even when they hurt, even when they don't make sense, even when they're unfair, our setbacks are so often our setups, right? For fuel of what we're supposed to step into. And when he said those words, I thanked him for his time, because what I realized in that moment was like, oh, he has seen the same images his whole life of what beauty is that I have too, right? Him passing on investing in us because of my weight, that is exactly why I need to create this, like build this company, shift culture and beauty, because it doesn't just affect women, it affects everybody. And he's a dad to little, right? And it's like, it affects everyone. And I never took his no personally. It fueled me. And by the way, just a fun side note is 8 years later, when we sold to L'Oreal and their largest US acquisition in history, I got an email from him. And he said, congratulations, I was wrong. And I also learned we would have been the biggest investment in his the most successful investment in his company's history. And the last thing I'll share is, on this is that, when I talk about our setbacks or our setups, had he said yes to us at that time, we were so desperate. We were so small. We had what looked like no opportunities around us. We probably would have sold like the majority of our business to him for almost no money just to survive. Instead, we ended up because everyone rejected us in big part, we ended up staying the largest shareholder all the way through the sale. And our life is and what we're able to do and how we're able to serve and give is so fundamentally different because of so many of those no's, even though at the time they hurt, they're painful. And it's like, I really think those, like, so often the most painful times in our life and the rejections and the no's are often like just like serendipitous grace, like wrapped in a package labeled painful, rejection. And so, part of staying positive was really keeping the perspective the whole time of, first of all, learning to really tune in and trust ourselves and our gut, because so many people, even in your community, people I know, myself, this is always a journey and a struggle, is to figure out how to trust ourselves, right? And how to actually, because we're surrounded by so much noise, right? We have all the self-doubt in our own head. We have other people's opinions all around us, everywhere. We hop on social media or the news and everyone's fighting. It's like there's so much noise that so many people go through life and never learn how to actually break through and turn down the volume on all that stuff, turn down the volume in our own heads of our own self-doubt, and actually get still and listen to what it is our gut is telling us, our knowing, our truth, right? And for a lot of people, that's how they hear God. For a lot of people, that's how they hear their faith. And I think that doing that is so important. And in the book, I talk about so many tips and lessons on how I've done it. But I feel like if people are going to do one thing, just really learning to tune in to and listen to their own gut. A lot of people have never done it. A lot of people haven't done it in a long time. A lot of people feel like they don't know how to do it. And part of not knowing how is just because we're not separating that, oh, wait, everything I'm hearing isn't me. I'm hearing my own self-doubt. I'm hearing other people's opinions. I'm hearing my friends and family who love me, but they only see me through their own lens of experience and limitations, right? We have to learn to turn down the volume on all that, get still, listen to our gut, because at the end of the day, it's the single biggest way we're going to step into all of who we are, all of who we're called to be. And I know you have a lot of athletes on and a lot of people, and competition's a big, and listen, I'm all for like competing, all that stuff. Like, oh, trust me, like I'm driven. Like, it's not an accident we built $1 billion business. But here's what I know to be true for anybody listening, whether their dream is to start painting again or to write a book and just write that first page, whatever it is. And I think this is so important, by the way, because now we're seeing social media everywhere and it's so easy to fall in that comparison trap. When it comes to competition, the biggest thing that I know is true, and I think when we focus on this is another way to stay really, really positive also, and it's true, is that we're not here to compete with anyone else. Like, we're here to compete with like who God made us born to be. Like, we're here to compete with who we know deep down inside we're capable of becoming. And when people really look at it that way, they're like, oh, that's when you know, oh, I'm not in the right job, or, oh, I need to start taking that dance class, or, oh, I need to, all those things we know deep down inside, if we're on that track of stepping into all that we are and all that we're created to be.
So Jamie, one of the things that I find in working with people day to day on the Ken Coleman Show with direct callers, they're calling in, is that in trying to figure out purpose sometimes in their work, there is a direct connection to pain in your life. Now, in your situation, the pain, right, was obviously the story you just shared. I don't want to overgeneralize that because that's not always the case. However, in your case, there was tremendous purpose in a season of pain, which came down to cosmetics. And then it just opened up so much more than dealing with your particular problem. It got way beyond that. I'm just curious to know, as you look back on that, how much you are grateful for that season of This was something that was, I'm a public figure and this is my skin and my appearance and a distraction for me, for the producer, blah, 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 blah. But now you look at it and you go, wow, it opened up the door, and I actually leaned into the pain by thinking of others outside of my own pain. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I believe that in every ounce of my being, that so many times our struggles that we're going through are really sort of this secret ingredient for part of our calling and part of how we're supposed to show up and serve the world, and also find fulfillment while we're doing it. And I think that, when we pay attention to our struggles, they really can become our superpowers in lots of areas of life, but especially professionally as well. And, for me, Ken, it kept going. And what I mean by that is, so it started with the skin condition, and I thought, oh, I can, cast real models that have skin problems too, and all these things. And as my journey went on, what I realized is the struggle was really just starting. So, like, I've worked really hard my whole life. I had no idea how hard it was going to be an entrepreneur, right?
Oh,
where everything is on you. And when I took that big risk, because a lot of people, they if they Google my story, they just see the outcome, like, Denny's waitress builds $1 billion empire. But the real journey, once I actually took that risk and I thought, okay, I'm going to trust God. I'm going to listen to that feeling I have inside. I'm going to jump. And I became an entrepreneur. What I didn't know was that, it would be 3 years of not being able to pay myself, and hundreds and hundreds of no's. And in that journey, it wasn't so fun. And it was the level of struggle, in the sense of, I had to learn so many lessons. There were so many beauty retailers and department stores and beauty stores that I'd always sort of put on a pedestal, and they all told me no, and that no one would buy, products from the kind of images I wanted to use, and that, women will only buy from unattainable aspiration. But this went on and on and on, where people are telling me to change who I am, or change that authentic mission I have if I want to get into their stores. And so it was this constant struggle of kind of knowing what I stand for, but then not knowing what to do when I wasn't seeing any proof around me that my idea was going to work, or that, and when these things happen to us in life, it's like we start to think, like, was my gut wrong? Because this wasn't just one no or two no. I mean, it was hundreds of no's, and from QVC and all the big stores. And that journey along the way started layering with the struggle. And what I mean by that is, we were about 2 years into the business and down to under $1,000 in my personal bank account and the company combined, which meant I could only keep the lights on a few more weeks. So I didn't know what we were going to do. And we got a big call from a potential investor who I was so excited about. It's a huge private equity firm, and they're really well known for taking, early stage companies and turning them into household names. And they loved our product because it was really good. It wasn't selling very much, but it was really good. And we started doing meetings with them, and we got to the diligence phase where I showed the whole product pipeline. And I thought this was going to be life changing, because I thought, man, if they invest, A, I'm not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they could use their leverage to get us into all these stores that keep telling me no. And I just thought it was going to be life changing. And my husband and I flew up for the final meeting, and we were all in person together. And the head guy was about 3 feet from me, and he says, congratulations, we're really proud of the product you've created, and we wish you all the best, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in cosmetics. And I was like, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is, usually a gift. And I think I had pretty thick skin. And I was like, can you tell me why? And at this point, I'd heard so many no's. And he says, do you want me to be really honest with you? I was like, yes, please. And he paused for a long time. And he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And when he said that, well, first of all, like a lifetime of body doubt flooded my body. And I never got mad at him, actually. I mean, I went in my car and cried, but the thing that I'll never forget is in that moment when he said those words, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I'll never forget this. And this is how I believe this is how we hear God, at least for me. But I remember in that moment when he said it, I got this feeling like deep down in my gut that said he's wrong. I remember that feeling like it was yesterday. And, you know, what ended up happening is like the next 6 years, because so we've all had someone look us in the eye and tell us, you know, you're not enough, or I don't believe in you, or your dream, or we all have those moments in life. And I just remember that the next 6 years, there were so many times where like those words would come back in my head, and I would literally I would imagine myself turning down the volume on them and turning up the volume on that feeling that I had in my gut that said he's wrong. And just to finish this little part is 6 years later, when we were in every retail store and we became the largest beauty brand in QVC and all those things, L'Oreal, when L'Oreal acquired my company that I started in my living room, we found out the day before the deal closed that they were going to announce the purchase price. I didn't know they were going to do that. And the day that they did, it was the home page of the Wall Street Journal. It was everywhere. L'Oreal buys it cosmetics for $1.2 billion cash. And I heard from that guy. I hadn't heard from him in 6 years. I heard from him and he said, congratulations. I heard about the L'Oreal deal. I'm so happy for you. I was wrong. And I learned that it would have been the most successful investment in his firm's history. But also, you know, the famous saying, rejection's God's protection. Like, had he believed in me back then, I was so desperate, I would have probably given him most of the company.
Yes,
for no
it's
money.
exactly right.
Because he didn't. Right. Well, by the time we sold, we were still the largest shareholders. And the last thing I just want to say about your question about just when we go through those struggles and the pain and all of that. What's so cool is that that rejection that I faced from him, that tough. I mean, listen, I cried many times over it, all the things, but like I never felt anger toward him. I realized, oh wow, my mission is so needed. Like he's just as much impacted by the way the beauty industry used to be as I was, and he thinks I can't make him money because of how I look, and so my mission's really needed. And then when I eventually like got traction with the company, and it wasn't just models with skin challenges, it was also every, you know, women of every age and size and skin tone. And what's really cool is right now, as we're speaking live, It Cosmetics is the largest luxury makeup company in the country. And about 95% of our millions and millions of customers have no skin challenges at all. They just identify with the same emotion and the same feelings of why I created the brand, right? So I think our pain, when we're able to process it and use it for something greater than ourselves, like that's such a part of, and I believe every person can do this in their own lives, in their own ways.
Well, you just mentioned in that answer two of the three indicators we talk about all the time, which is how you get clear on what you're supposed to do in your professional life. And passion and mission are all over the answer. And, you know, there's multiple languages where the root word of passion means to suffer. And I think many times we hear passion and we think, oh, excitement all the time. And it does. Passion evokes a strong emotional and physical response. But it is really deeper than that. When we talk about passion, Jamie, we're not talking about an emotion. We're talking about I'm willing to suffer for a cause. And you did. You almost lost everything. I mean, you went through incredible amounts of difficulty, and we heard that. And that is suffering. There's no question you suffered professionally and personally to make it happen.
This is a week we are talking about mindset and how important that is to not just have happiness and greater success or fulfillment or connection in your life, but all of those, yes, for sure. But also just so that life doesn't feel like a slog and a burnout experience where just every day you're just like, you know, that's mindset. The tasks of the world aren't you. And the tasks of the world don't need to shape your mindset. Your mindset can shape how you deal with the tasks of the world. And that's a beautiful thing. And Jamie, you were sharing, I don't know what the story is yet, y'all, but she had something happen. You were sharing some mindset or something happened when you checked in the hotel or wherever you're at?
Yeah, this was a crazy morning. So why not share it live? Why not share it live with
I haven't
our
heard the
family
story.
in the Growth Day morning show? So yeah, here's, we're doing a big event Monday. So I flew cross country. I am near Miami, and checked into a hotel, and I was out doing my morning walk this morning, right? This is a whole story on mindset that literally moved me to tears this morning. And I want to share it with everyone because I think a lot of people out there might be in a season of, I don't know, just feeling like they're struggling and setbacks, and just if like things aren't going your way. I want to talk today, Brendan, about the mindset around not fearing rejection and not fearing what feels like failure at the time.
So key.
And
so key.
I was just like blindsided by something out of the blue this morning. So I'm out doing my morning walk in this, in this hotel, my mask on, all the stuff, out doing my morning walk. I walk through a hallway and I was like, whoa, I had a memory that I had forgotten about in this actual hotel 9 years ago. And I want to share it with everybody. So 9 years ago in this hotel, just outside of Miami, there was a big beauty summit there, right? I was a few years into building my company and we had heard no's for a couple years. And I remember my husband Apollo and I were right here at this very hotel. I had forgotten about this until today. And I walked in the hallway where something happened, exactly where something happened. So it was a huge beauty summit. And this is after a couple years of rejection. And there was, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people there. And Ulta Beauty, which is the largest department store, largest beauty retailer in the country, their CEO was there and their head buyer at the very front table, like this round table. Meanwhile, we're in the very back of the, and I just remember, this moment where I like had to muster up all the courage inside of me to beeline straight for that table. After hearing no's for a couple years, went right up to the CEO who normally wouldn't take meetings. It's not the person that told me no, right? It would be a buyer that tells you no. Walked straight up to the CEO, like mustered every ounce of courage, like trying to forget all the rejection, and just introduced myself. And he introduced me to the head buyer, and I just pitched my heart out to Ulta Beauty. And I remember they agreed to a meeting. So then I walk out of this room, right? It's this ballroom in this hotel. I walk out of this room right into the hallway in this very hotel I'm in talking to you live from right now. Walk out in the hallway and I see the two founders of Gussie Ranker that do all the infomercials, like Proactive, Tony Robbins, all the infomercials. And I had been pitching them for 2 years and they'd been saying no. Their teams had been saying no. So I see Bill Gussie and Greg Wenker in the hall. I've never met them before. Same thing, prayed for strength, prayed for courage, like had to make that decision of mindset, which is, okay, I'm going to forget right now that I've been rejected by them for the past 2 years. I'm going to put that, and I'm not going to fear rejection again right now, because I believe in what I'm doing. And I beelined for the founders of Gussie Ranker right outside
Love
this,
that.
like,
courage,
like a buffet table, right
belief,
outside the
courage.
thing.
I love it.
Yes. Yes, and they're sitting there snacking on the hors d'oeuvres in between the speaker breaks. I went right up to them, introduced myself, and literally poured my heart, like pitched everything on how they've been saying no for 2 years, but they really should say yes because all the things. So this morning, I had forgotten about this, right? The fact that we could barely afford a hotel room in this hotel in that moment 9 years ago. This morning, I'm out doing my morning walk with my mask, like not even. And all of a sudden I walk through that hallway and every single memory hit me from
I love that.
But the last time I walked through that hallway and what had happened since was right now at this moment, like we got that meeting at Ulta. And right now, live with you, Brendan, that It Cosmetics is the #1 brand in all of Ulta across the country. We got that meeting with Gussie Ranker and we became the most successful makeup infomercial they've ever done. And we are like right now at this moment. And I was standing there like, first of all, I start sobbing, remembering all the rejection, but also just appreciating the hustle, appreciating the journey, appreciating the ability to just figure out how to go from doubting myself to like stepping into going, okay, I'm going to not fear rejection. I'm going to go for it. And sometimes that's what it takes to change everything. So I'm standing there in the hallway, and I start sobbing. Sure, the people working at the hotel are like, but I'm like, wow, I forgot those moments even happened. And I'm walking through them this morning here, getting ready for this huge event. And I don't know, it just reminded me of Growth Day Morning Show all week and how we're talking about the power of mindset and the just making the decision to not be afraid of rejection and failure. Just making that decision is huge, huge.
And the courage and the mindset. I bet people watching this right now have had one of those full circle moments, right? That is a full circle. Some people call it a full circle moment. We've always called it a full courage moment. Mm-hmm. A full courage moment is when you lost the battle, but you kept going, and then you have a victory. And in that victory, you recognize like a serendipity or a moment, or what Paulo Coelho would call an LF. And it just happens. And it's like this space where like, it's almost like a time space where the past and the current moment kind of collide and remind you of your strength, remind you of what you've been through, remind you of something important to your spirit, or remind you of a moment that was important to your life. And that LF, or that full circle, or that full courage moment, I bet you all have had that. So if you had one, type it down below, just share it with us. I'd love to see it in the comments. Like, what was a full courage moment or a full circle moment where, you labored and labored, and maybe you lost or you were rejected, it didn't work out. And then one day, bam, it was like it all came together and you remembered it. I love those. I've had those in my publishing career quite a bit, of places I went to read or research or write. And then I later saw my book there, and it was like, oh my gosh, or places that, similar, where I sat in a seminar at a conference, and it wouldn't be later until I was on the stage speaking later to literally thousands or tens of thousands of people in an arena. And it would hit me, I was there. I was in your seat. I sat in that seat, and I could literally remember the seat, and I'd walk out to the seat and I go, I was sitting in your seat 5 years ago. And then we're like, oh my God, I'm like, right here. And I'd pull the person up on stage with me, and I'd be like, you're me. And we'd have this conversation, because I think those are magical. I think that you need to take a picture of that hallway and do a little reel on it, or something on your Instagram today, or on your stories, and make sure you're all following Jamie on Instagram so you can see that story. That's beautiful, Jamie. Congratulations. That's just full courage moment.
Yeah. And it just reminded me. And I think, there's so many, I mean, not to just go deep on this, but when it comes to women in particular, and it could be everybody, but women in particular, so many of us don't try things because we're afraid of failure, or we're afraid of rejection, or afraid we're not going to do it perfectly, or we're not qualified, all those kind of things. And I was reminded of that this morning, because just the idea of not fearing rejection too. Yes, of course, of being courageous. Yes, of course, of going for it, all tied together, but just like being okay. Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, talks about how growing up at the family table, at the dinner table, every single day, her dad would ask them, they go around the table, and he'd say, tell me something you failed at today. It wasn't like, oh, tell me something you won at. It was, tell me something you failed at. And they'd all go around the table. And it was this idea of normalizing failure, not being afraid of it. And it's like that whole idea of like, oh my gosh, if we didn't fear failure. And I know, and you say this a lot, no matter how small you start something that matters, right? And so many people
and I also say people don't feel failure, and people don't fear starting. They fear being embarrassed when they're seen starting small.
Yeah.
See, when people have a lot of success, and like people who achieve something in their lives and they go to do something again, they know when they fail, it's like, oh, that's part of the process. But when you're beginning, you're so terrified. What does other people think of me? I'm going to be embarrassed because they think I'm this, but I'm trying to do that. Or if it doesn't work out, and we get everyone else's judgments up in our brains. And we forget that their judgments are, one, usually not qualified, and two, time bound. And I'll give you the example of what you just talked about. Your no's that you got from, the beauty company, from Guthy, but also a lot of other things that you share about in your book, Believe It. And you even say this in your book, Believe It. The no's, like the first pitch that you got from L'Oreal to buy It Cosmetics.
Yeah.
It was a no. And that time was perfect. You weren't, or I'm sorry, from Alan, even on QVC, like talking about, oh, he said no for you being on QVC, which was a great thing because you weren't ready yet.
Yeah. And I sometimes just didn't know it.
The no's are just preparing you. The no's are going to go, oh, go get better, kid. It's not a no forever. It's a no in that slice of time. And that's what happened. In that moment of time, previously they had rejected her, but now they're open. Time marches on. And here's what I would tell people. You want believers, you want people to believe and cheer on you. Guess where they're not? They like in a marathon, yeah, your family's there at the beginning, clapping you to start. But you get the believers at the finish line. You get you get the real supporters with momentum. You want believers, get momentum. So Guthy and others didn't believe in Jamie because she didn't have the level of momentum yet that was required to play it at their level or what they were comfortable with. And then she went and kicked ass, right? She just went and just demolished the marketplace. She gobbled up the marketplace and everyone's like, oh my God, Jamie, It Cosmetic. And then they had to take notice. They had to take notice. They had to get on the Jamie train. Otherwise, they were going to miss out because it was clear this thing was leaving town and it was taking the future with it. And I just want you to understand that. So for all those who are freaked out, first, don't con yourself. The greatest gift you can ever give yourself is not conning yourself, not lying to yourself. You're not scared to start small. You're embarrassed about the judgments that might come from other people. Get over that. Grow up. We're out of high school. Let's get on with it, okay? Second, that was mean. Second, you want believers, get momentum. Keep fighting for it. I love the mindset Jamie had of you don't stop asking, growing, and pushing, even if people don't get it at certain points. But also she didn't hold any bitterness against them for saying no earlier. She was still willing to push and try. She didn't hold the bitterness that prevented her from not going for them. She didn't go like, oh, those people, they're like this and they'll never accept me. She said, one day you're going to accept me because I'm going to prove myself. So I love that.
Another part of this too, is sometimes we're embarrassed to whether it's beeline to the front of the room where we don't have a seat at the table or whatever it is, right? Where we think, what if I go try this and get rejected again or fail or all those things. But people actually, what I've learned now that I can look back on all this, and now that so many of these people that said no to me for years, now I know them really well. Now we have partnerships together. Now I know they
You hired some of them. The people who rejected her, she ended up hiring them. She became their boss. She was the person they belittled, and then she became their boss.
All things are possible. But no, it's actually fascinating. Even with Sephora, who's a great partner today, they're a big beauty retailer, great partner, awesome, of It Cosmetics. They said no for about 6 years, even after we had become huge. And because I kept going back every time I get knocked down, because I kept being told no, being rejected, and didn't take it personal, I kept going back. By the end, I think that they had a lot of respect. They're like, okay. And same with L'Oreal, by the way, because it was 3 years before it became a yes. It was 3 years of meetings. And I think that the way you handle rejection too, and the way you're able to show resiliency and courage and get back up, that actually can make other people want to partner with you, regardless of how they feel about your product or service. I think when you see what people are made of over time. And so I think there's something powerful to that too, is also just in that journey, how you handle it, not just inside your own mindset, but also how you show up to everyone else around you, even the people rejecting you and doubting you, when you really want to just get mad and be like, F you, but you want to do that. It's a human part of us, right? But that doesn't serve anybody. It's like when you don't take it personally and you just keep going and keep getting back up and keep believing it's going to happen, whether it does or doesn't ever. I think that's huge in terms of how much respect other people develop for you in the journey of building your own company or launching your own dream or building your own friendships and relationships.
And if she had stopped at the first no, there wouldn't have been a second yes. And once you realize that in life, and listen, if they both had said no, we would probably still be here. Like Jamie would find a way. I'll keep this private, but I consult I coach another major super female entrepreneur who everyone respects. And one time she said to me, I'm going to keep it private because she said it in private, but it was a great metaphor about something she was going through. She shared that, her belief was that sometimes there isn't a seat at the table for you because you're not ready. Or if you're not invited to the table enough, you're not standing out enough or communicating or speaking up to share your wins and your successes. Or she said, if you try to pull up the chair or you're not invited to the chair or whatever, she goes, go build your own table. Go start your own company where you buy the conference table and you hire people to sit there and you work on the same thing. Like the idea that we have to wait to be at something. Like I didn't wait to be at the publishing world. I self-published my first book. And that changed the course of my career forever because they all said no to me. So I had all these rejections. I've had every book I've ever done, I had rejections on from multiple publishers. And some of those books became like literally industry or field defining genres. Like Motivation Manifesto is still to this day the best-selling motivation title of the century, which is insane to think about.
How cool is that? How cool is that?
After the company that gave me the deal said, not only did they give me the deal, when I turned the book in, they said, no, Jamie. They said, we don't like the book. We think it's terrible. You need to add more fluffy stories. And they basically, as best they could, completely insult my artistic integrity. And I had to decide, either I change the book for them or I say, I'm going to take my book and go somewhere else, which was a super hard decision for Denise and I at the time in my life, because they had already given us the money. I'd already spent it probably, it's like, oh my God. But now they hate the book but I love the book.
And you didn't want to change it.
No, that book comes out, and that's the book that got me, that's the book Oprah interviewed me for her magazine. That's the book that, Meghan Markle puts in her top 5 books of all time. That's the book that, it's the thing at the launch time was the little black book that all the celebrities are reading, because it was just like, it was such a different thing, and it took off. And if I had just quit because they said no, or they really did insult me. I mean, you talk about in judgment. They questioned whether or not I was drugs. They asked me literally, were you on drugs when you were writing this? It was just like, I'm like, I barely drink milk, people. I barely drink milk. Coffee is like,
when you have one coffee, you're like,
I'm like, everyone thinks there's coffee in this every morning. It's just water in there, people. Like, so I'm just letting you say, but I kept going. So this is a story, and this is a mindset today, ladies and gentlemen, of don't worry about the no's, because if it is true dream to you, if it is sown in your heart to fulfill that desire and dream, you keep going, even if your spouse doesn't understand, even if your parents or your, mother-in-laws or your old cousins or your neighbors down the block are making fun of you at the barbecue. Who cares? Your dream wasn't made for them. Your dream was made for you.
So Motivation Manifesto, tell me if I'm remembering this right also. Isn't this the book? I know Oprah interviewed you for it, but didn't she let you know it was on her bedside table?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. So Denise and I are at her house. She was throwing her book. So talk about full circle moment. Oprah is throwing her book launch party at her house and invites about, I think there's like 300 of us there. And like the Super Soul 100 members, which, we're part of, and all these other things. Anyway, we go there, and there's all these, and they're super slick, like Julia Roberts and Reese Witherspoon, and Jeff Bezos is literally there from Amazon. It's just
wait, Brendan Burchard was there.
No, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Denise and I totally don't feel like we're sitting like next to Dr. Phil during her talk, and like all these, Alicia Keys is on stage. It's just crazy, unbelievable. One of the most magical things I'd ever been invited to in my life, and we're sitting there, we're not having imposter syndrome, but we're just recognizing like, wow, this is another caliber of group of people here. And afterwards, there was like this amazing barbecue. Oprah always gets the food right. I mean, let me tell you, her whole team. So anyway, we're all there. I don't think I'm going to see her, talk to her. I really want to introduce Denise to her, but I don't think it's going to happen because there's so many people there. Anyway, at some point, Oprah's doing the rounds. She comes around, and I'm standing there. I think I was with Gabby and Marie Forleo and Jack Canfield. Oh gosh, I'm blinking. There's 4 or 5 of us standing there, and she comes up, and I introduced Denise, and I don't remember how it happened, but we were talking about the books or something, and then I said something about, oh yeah, I remember our interview in New York, Motivation Manifest. She goes, do you remember? She says, I have your book on my bedstand right now upstairs. I always have it there. And I was like, and all of our mouths dropped. And I was like, I don't think I said another word. I just think I was like, I think I just stood there dumb for like, I don't even remember when she left at that point. I literally just, all circuits shut off. I just stood there. After she left, I do remember at some point during the party pulling Denise aside and go, hey, did Oprah come up to us and say this thing about? Because I thought maybe I was daydreaming. I thought I was crazy.
You're like, Denise, did this really happen?
Plus, they had this barbecue and this punch there, and I'd had too much of the punch thingy. So I was like, did that happen, y'all? Anyway, it was a magical. And then I can't tell you the number of people. If y'all search Motivation Manifesto on YouTube, we have this video of like all these, like Ariana Huffington reading from it, the late great Larry King reading from it, the actor who played Superman, then Miss Universe, like all these people are reading the Harvey Mackay, a legend in our industry. They're just reading from the book because it sounds so cool, and it just grew and grew and grew into this thing. And I wouldn't have any of these goofy stories, and Jamie wouldn't have had her all laugh moment this morning in the hotel. Those moments of serendipity, or those moments of reward, or those moments of like extraordinary, wow, is this my dream? Did this really happen? Only comes after the mindset of courage says, keep going. Yeah. You have a dream. You don't need everyone to approve. Get momentum, work hard, keep your head down, keep your voice up, keep your faith up, keep showing up. And all of a sudden, one day, it's like, wow, look at what happened. I mean, look what happened. Jamie's probably in the presidential suite up in there. Let me tell you, people. I'm just saying, she's probably figured out, like Jamie's such an extraordinary, outstanding success story. And to know her humility, knowing how she must have felt walking down that hallway.
I was sobbing this morning, Brendan. I was just like, wow. These words came to me. They're famous words that say, pray like it's all up to God and work like it's all up to you. And I just like those words just came to me because the journey, right? It's the journey. It's not even the outcome or the destination, but I'm just having this moment too, hearing your story. And I just want to share that one piece again for everyone listening, because I know a lot of people are just hopping on the morning show. I think it's something like 15,000 people or something, like hop on and off throughout the morning across all the platforms. It's some crazy number. That's awesome. But what I want to share just is
this week, y'all, I just want to shout out, thank you for that. For the audience, you all, thank you for inviting your friends. Thank you for watching the replays, especially across Facebook. Our replays are crazy because across all our pages and our groups and the show on Instagram, this week will be the week we pass 1 million views of this Growth Day morning show. Like this, just good-hearted, good-willed, good-spirited show that we do for Growth Day. This Growth Day morning show will pass 1 million views in our first month doing it, more or less, or second month. I don't know where we're at. But it's really because people just go, you know what? I'd love to start my morning in personal development. Because when I put that in my ears, that rewires my brain. It sets my expectations. It helps me approach the day with confidence and joy and aliveness. And I thank Jamie for being here with us for this, because listen, we're all here for you all, just trying to keep going, trying to keep you inspired, trying to bring a little bit of joy into your heart.
What was one of the greatest points of rejection, and what happened internally that kept you going when so many people would have quit?
I believe when we change our relationship with rejection, like we literally can change our whole lives.
Okay, I have to stop you. I'm so sorry. I have to stop you. You have to say that again, and I want to let that sink in. Then I want you to keep going. Just say it one more time. I want our listeners to feel that. This is like this is worth the whole time. Say it again, please, and then unpack it for us.
When we change our relationship with rejection, we change our entire lives. We change our teams, we change our business, we change. I believe we can never reach our true calling and our true potential and our true greatness unless we literally learn how to change our relationship with rejection. And when we see it as something that comes with the territory of being a brave one willing to go after your calling, one willing to go after your potential, one willing to bet on yourself and bet on the vision God's put in you, you're a brave one. And I think that when you're going after anything great and anything brave, it comes with rejection. So I've literally in my life, and I still get rejected to this day, right? And like, it's so funny, but it rolls right off me now, Craig. It doesn't hurt me anymore. I see it as like, yeah, it's like a reminder. Oh, I just got rejected again. Yep, I'm a brave one. I'm going after it. I am not going to get to heaven one day and be like, God, I lived as half as who you made me to be. God, I stepped into a quarter of my greatness. God, I know you put all these big things inside of me and I did some of them. Like I keep reminding myself I want to arrive there and be like, I have nothing left. Be like, I gave it my all. And so I've flipped my mindset into, okay, rejection, boom, boom. I don't hear it anymore as you're not enough, right? I used to always hear rejection as almost like a reminder of something I wish I didn't believe, which is that I'm not enough. And that was a really big thing to get over in my life. And so, part of launching the It Cosmetics, right? Long before it was this, we built a team of over 1,000 employees, became the largest, number one luxury makeup company in the country, in the United States. All these things happen. A lot of people just know that part. But the real journey is a girl who literally, I started believing I wasn't enough. And I tried to enter this beauty industry to change the conversation and help everyone feel like, oh, wait, you are enough. And let's try to shift the conversation around that. But the journey was filled with so many rejections. And, to talk about, I don't even know how I could pick one. There were so many. And here's the thing is so many of the people that rejected me along the way were who I would consider experts, right? And sometimes it's so easy to put experts on this pedestal and be like, well, if they're telling me I don't have what it takes, or they're saying I'm not going to succeed, like it's very hard not to let those words of rejection turn into self-doubt in our own heads. And so on my journey, of sending the product out to all these retailers, and I really believed in it. And two quick rejections that stand out. One was after hundreds of rejections from every retailer out there. We got a phone call from a potential investor who's a big private equity company, and they gotten a hold of our product and loved the product and wanted to have a meeting. And I was so excited, Craig, because I thought, oh my gosh, they've taken so many of these unknown brands and made them into huge consumer product companies that we all shop for in grocery stores and know of. And I thought, if they invest, then A, I won't go bankrupt, and B, maybe they can use their leverage to get us into all of these retailers that keep telling me no. And so we did all the meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting. We entered the diligence phase, right, which is when they start looking into all of our financial projections, our future product pipeline. And it came down to the final meeting, and my husband and I flew up for it. And the head guy at the private equity company, he was really kind. His whole team was awesome. And at the end, he says to me, and by the way, this is now after a couple years and hundreds of rejections, right? So we're at that under $1,000 in our bank account, maybe going bankrupt at any moment situation. And we're in person, and he was about 3 feet from me. And he says to me, congratulations. We really believe in your product. It's a great product. But it's a no, we're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. And I was just like, devastated, right? And I was like, okay, but I was so used to hearing no at this point. And I said, well, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. I said, can you tell me why? And he got really quiet, and there was a long pause, and he says, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I remember when he said those words, well, first of all, it was like a lifetime of body doubt, self-doubt, like flooded my whole body. And I never actually felt any anger toward him or anything like that. But I remember one moment that I just want to call this out, because I feel like these are the moments, and we all have them. We've all had someone look at us and tell us we're not enough, for whatever version of rejection we've faced. And sometimes it's someone in our family who loves us and just doesn't see our dream. Sometimes it's a partner. Sometimes it's in business. But we've all had these moments. And what I'll never forget, Craig, literally like it was yesterday, is when he was saying those words to my face. He says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this feeling deep down in like the pit of my stomach that said he's wrong. Like I felt it so strongly. And I still went out in my car and cried. I still, all those things. And for many years, you know, when I would hear those words, you know how we hear the words sometimes that someone says to us that hurt, I would like imagine myself turning down the volume on them and turning the volume up, and that feeling I had, which I realized is a knowing. It's an intuition. It's a still small voice. It's God telling us, you know, oh, he's telling you no, but I'm giving you a knowing, right? It's that knowing we have inside. And I believe our life comes down to the moments when we trust our knowing over the no's, our knowing over what we can't see in front of us, what looks like, you know, is it going to happen, or is it going to come to pass, or is it, you know what I mean? And by the way, 6 years later, and I'm skipping over so many things, but 6 years later, when L'Oreal bought this little tiny company I started in my living room, for $1.2 billion cash, and it was their largest acquisition in the U.S. and U.S. history for them. They made me the first woman to hold a CEO title in their 100+ year history of any brand. And it was a whole thing. So it was on the homepage of the Wall Street Journal the day that it happened, online. And that's when I heard from that investor for the first time. And he said, congratulations. I hadn't heard from him in 6 years. And he said, congratulations. I was wrong.
Yes.
I'm so happy for you.
And you're so much politer than I am, because I would have said to him, and I'll give you 1.2 billion reasons why you're wrong.
I love that so much.
I don't recommend that anyone else says that, but that's it's just like
so
that.
good.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.